Dracula by Bram Stoker. Chapter 17. Dr. Seward's Diary. When we arrived at the Berkeley Hotel, Van Helsing found a telegram waiting for him. "I'm coming up by train. Jonathan at Whitby. Important news. Mina Harker." The professor was delighted. "Ah, wonderful, Madame Mina," said he. "A pearl among women. She arrived, but I cannot stay. She must go to your house, friend John. You must meet her at the station. Telegraph her en route so that she may be prepared." When the wire was dispatched he had a cup of tea. Over it he told me of a diary kept by Jonathan Harker when abroad and gave me a typewritten copy of it, as also of Mrs. Harker's diary at Whitby. "Take these," he said, "and study them well. When I have returned you will be master of all the facts, and we can then better enter on our inquisition. Keep them safe, for there is in them much of treasure. You will need all your faith, even you who have had such an experience as that of today." What is here told? He laid his hand heavily and gravely on the packet of papers as he spoke. "May be the beginning of the end to you and me and many another, or it may sound the knell of the undead who walk on the earth. Read all, I pray you, with an open mind, and if you can add in any way to the story here told, do so, for it is all important. You have kept a diary of all these things, so strange, is it not? Yes? Then we will go through all these together when we meet." He then made ready for his departure, and shortly after drove off to Liverpool Street. I took my way to Paddington, where I arrived about 15 minutes before the train came in. The crowd melted away after the bustling fashion common to arrival platforms, and I was beginning to feel uneasy, lest I might miss my guest, when a sweet-faced, dainty-looking girl stepped up to me, and, after a quick glance, said, "Dr. Seward, is it not?" "And you are Miss Harker," I answered at once, whereupon she held out her hand. "I knew you from the description of poor dear Lucy, but—" She stopped suddenly, and a quick blush overspread her face. The blush rose into my own cheeks somehow, set us both at ease, for it was a tacit answer to her own. I got her luggage, which included a typewriter, then we took to the Underground to Fenchurch Street, after I had sent a wire to my housekeeper to have her sitting-room and bedroom prepared at once for Mrs. Harker. In due time we arrived. She knew, of course, that the place was a lunatic asylum, but I could see that she was unable to repress a slight shudder when we entered. She told me that, if she might, she would come presently to my study, as she had so much to say. So here I am finishing with my entry in my phonograph, whilst I await her. As yet I have not had a chance of looking at the papers which Van Helsing left with me. They lie open before me. I must get her interested in something, so that I may have an opportunity of reading them. She does not know how precious time is, or what a task we have at hand. I must be careful not to frighten her. Here she is. Mina Harker's Journal, 29th of September. After I tidied myself, I went down to Dr. Seward's study. At the door I paused a moment, for I thought I heard him talking with someone. As, however, he had pressed me to be quick, I knocked at the door, and on his calling out, "Come in," I entered. To my surprise, there was no one with him. He was quite alone, and on the table opposite him was what I knew at once, from the description, to be a phonograph. I had never seen one, and was much interested. "I hope I did not keep you waiting," I said, "but I stayed at the door, and I heard you talking, and thought there was someone with you." "Oh," he replied, with a smile, "I was only entering my diary." "Your diary?" I asked him in surprise. "Yes," he answered, "I keep it in this." As he spoke, he laid a hand on the phonograph. I felt quite excited over it, and blurted out, "Why, this beats even shorthand. May I hear it say something?" "Certainly," he replied with alacrity, and stood up and put in the train for speaking. Then he paused. A troubled look overspread his face. "The fact is," he began awkwardly, "I only keep my diary in it, as it is almost entirely about my cases. It may be awkward, that is, I mean—" He stopped, and I tried to help him out of his embarrassment. "You helped to attend dear Lucy at the end. Let me hear how she died. For all that I can know of her, I should be very grateful. She was very, very dear to me." To my surprise he answered, with a horror-struck look in his face, "Tell you of her death? Not for the wide world." "Why not?" I asked, for some grave, terrible feeling was overcoming me. Again he paused, and I could see that he was trying to invent an excuse. At length he stammered out, "You see, I do not know how to pick out any particular part of the diary." Even while he was speaking, an idea dawned upon him, and he said, with unconscious simplicity, in a different voice, and with the naivety of a child, "That's quite true, upon my honour." I could not smile, at which he grimaced. I gave myself away at that time. But you know that, although I have kept the diary for months past, it never once struck me how I was going to find any particular part, in case I wanted to look it up. By this time my mind was made up that a diary of a doctor who attended Lucy might have something to add to the sum of our knowledge of that terrible being, and I said boldly, "Then, Dr. Seward, you had better let me copy it out for you on my typewriter." He grew to a positively deathly pallor as he said, "No, no, no, not for all the world. I wouldn't let you know that terrible story." Then it was terrible. My intuition was right. For a moment I thought, and as my eyes ranged about the room, unconsciously looking for something or some opportunity to aid me, they lit on the great batch of typewriting on the table. His eyes caught the look in mine, and, without thinking, followed their direction. As they saw the parcel, he realized my meaning. "You do not know me," I said. "When you have read those papers, my own diary and my husband's also, which I have typed, you will know me better. I have not faltered in giving every thought of my own heart in this cause, but, of course, you do not know me, yet I must not expect you to trust me so far." He is certainly a man of noble nature. Poor dear Lucy was right about him. He stood up and opened a large drawer, in which were arranged in order a number of hollow cylinders of metal covered with dark wax, and said, "You are quite right. I did not trust you because I do not know you. But I now know you, and let me say I should have known you long ago. I know that Lucy told me of you, and told you of me, but I make only atonement in my power. Take the cylinders and hear them. The first half-dozen of them are personal to me, and they will not horrify you. Then you will know me better. Dinner will be ready then. In the meantime I shall read over some of these documents, and we shall better be able to understand certain things." He carried the phonograph himself up to my sitting-room, and adjusted it for me. "Now I shall learn something pleasant, I am sure, for it will tell me the other side of a true love, of which I know one side already." 29th of September. I was so absorbed in that wonderful diary of Jonathan Harker and of his wife that I let time run on without thinking. Mrs. Harker was not down when the maid came to announce dinner, so I said, "She is possibly tired, let dinner wait an hour," and I went on with my work. I had just finished Mrs. Harker's diary when she came in. She looked sweetly pretty, but very sad, and her eyes were flushed with crying. This somehow much moved me. Of late I have had cause for tears, but the grief in them was defied me, and now the sight of those sweet eyes, brightened with recent tears, went straight to my heart. And so I said as gently as I could, "I greatly fear I have distressed you." "Oh no, not distressed me," she replied, "but I have been more touched than I can say by your grief. That is a wonderful machine, but it is cruelly true. It told me, in its very tones, the anguish of your heart. It was like a soul crying out to Almighty God. No one must hear them spoken ever again. See, I have tried to be useful. I have copied out the words on my typewriter, and none other need now hear your heart beat as I did. No one need ever know," I said in a low voice, and she laid her hand on mine and said very gravely, "Ah, but they must." "Must? But why?" I asked. "Because it is a part of the terrible story, a part of poor dear Lucy's death and all that led to it, because in the struggle which we have had before us to reach the earth of this terrible monster, we must have all the knowledge and all the help which we can get. I think that the cylinders which you gave me contain more than you intended me to know, but I can see that you are, in your record, many lights to this dark mystery. You will let me help, will you not? I know all of a certain plot, and I see already, though your diary only took me to 7th of September, how poor Lucy was beset, and how terrible doom was being wrought out. Jonathan and I have been working day and night since Professor Van Helsing saw us. He's gone to Whitby to get more information, and he will be here tomorrow to help us. We need have no secrets amongst us. Working together and with absolute trust, we can surely be stronger than if some of us were in the dark. She looked at me so appealingly, and at the same time manifested such courage and resolution in her hearing, that I gave in at once to her wishes. "You shall," I said. "Do as you like in the matter. God forgive me, I do wrong. These are terrible things to learn of, but if you have so far travelled on the road to poor Lucy's death, you will not be content. I know to remain in the dark, nay, the end, the very end, may give you a gleam of peace. Come, there is dinner. We must keep one another strong, for what is before us, we have a cruel and dreadful task. When you have eaten you shall learn the rest, and I will answer any questions you ask. If there be anything which you do not understand, that was apparent to us who were present,